happened to just kind of fall in my lap. It was a wholesale deal at first, and I love the area. So what ended up happening was I wanted it as a primary residence, and then I had a client purchase an Airbnb a couple months prior, like down the street, and I was like, you know what, let me ask him how his Airbnb's doing, and it was doing phenomenal. So I was like, you know what, before I turn this into a primary residence, I want to try out the short-term rental market, turn it into an Airbnb, turn it into a VRBO, and if it doesn't work out, I can always fall back and live in it. And it needed a full renovation anyways, this specific property. So I was like, I'm gonna put 80, 100,000 into it regardless if I live there or if it's gonna be a short-term rental. So what I ended up doing is just tailoring it a little bit more towards like the short-term rental renovations, very open space, a little bit higher end appliances, granite, stuff like that. And I just threw it on Airbnb last year, February of last year, so almost a full year ago. And what I didn't know is the high season of Arizona for short-term rentals happened to be the exact time that I listed it. So within the very first day of me listing that property, I had like $7,000-8,000 worth of inquiries booked out over the next couple months, and I blew my mind. I didn't know what was going on. So that was like kind of my first taste of short-term rentals and how I really got into it. I didn't run a whole lot of data, which is what I normally do if I want to buy a property. Sure. Like I want to get all the comps. So I did a little bit of due diligence, but most of it was just kind of like trial and error. Let me try this out. If it doesn't work, I have a plan to fall back on. So that's how I got into it. And like I said, only one of my 6 is a short-term rental right now, but moving forward, I want to get into more short terms for sure. Yeah.
So you have 5 long-term rentals then?
Yeah, I house hack 1. So I live in 1, and then I have 4 long terms and then 1 Airbnb, correct.
What's like the biggest difference between the long-term rentals that you have and like the short-term rentals? Have you seen just a difference in managing them, the amount of money you're making?
Yeah. So the amount of money I'm making, I actually just did the numbers last year for my Airbnb. For 11 months, I did just about $40,000 in profit of $80,000 of growth for my short-term rental. So my margin was about 50% on that, but compare it to any of my long-term rentals, it 2x'd my student rental, which is my second best cash flowing property. So there's a lot of cash flow play in these short-term rentals, given there's also a lot of fluctuations, there's a lot more stress that goes with it, there's a lot more managing that goes with it. So if you're just trying to maximize cash flow and you're willing to either delegate or outsource any of the work or do the work yourself, it's well worth it. Especially right now with interest rates increasing, it's hard to find any long-term rental that you're going to cash flow on unless you literally force it with like 30-40% down, and then at that point it's like opportunity cost where you can go and buy a short-term rental for the same thing. So my other long-term rental is a student rental too, which cash flows $800-900 a month, I think, and that one's my second best cash flowing one. But I average about $3,000 to $4,000 a month on my short-term rental profit.
Yeah, I mean that's super hard to beat for just one single family house. But I did hear even earlier you were talking about you have to like run over there today and like clean it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's funny.
Like,
I actually
you don't have to do that with, you know, like long-term rentals. You might see that house once every couple of years sometimes.
You're absolutely right. I haven't been to 3 of my rentals in the last 2 years. I haven't set foot in the 2 in Phoenix, which is incredible. They're very, very passive, and I'm very grateful for it. It's very easy. I actually got a text today from my second rental that a family lives there, and their toilet's leaking, and that was the only problem in the last like year and a half that I've had with that property. So yeah, if you want really hands-off long term, if you can find the deal. But I don't mind the Airbnbs, the going over there and messaging people. I manage everything on my own. So besides some of the cleaning, I actually did start cleaning a little bit on my own. Like if I have an extra time once a week and I have that day open, I'll go over there and clean it myself with a friend, and I'll pay him, and it saves me $160 to $180 depending on the day. So I've even gotten a little bit more hands-on with it, and it's just capitalizing even more on my cash flow. So I don't mind it. I always like being hands-on with all my stuff. I manage all 5 of my properties, and it's no problem for me.